Hi, Kevin.
Good.
Kevin, can you hear us? No, it's not working.
Hello?
Hello. Can you hear
Hi.
me?
I can, yeah.
We haven't started quite yet, Kevin.
Okay, sounds good. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Can you guys hear him? Okay.
Okay.
Yes, everybody can hear you.
Sounds good. I'm not sure if there's a way for me to mute myself. There is some background noise here occasionally, but if need be, I guess I'll figure that out.
Yeah, Kevin, I don't hear anything in the background. You sound real clear.
Okay, sounds good. If the neighbors are loud, I will tell them to keep it down.
Okay, I'll call the meeting to order at 7:05. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Allred,
Here?
Mr. Andreessen,
Here.
Mr. Fell, Mr. Hopkins.
Here.
Ms. McFarland,
Present.
Mr. Rose,
Here.
Ms. Sims, and Ms. Hugh.
Here.
Okay, it looks like we have a quorum. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There are none.
Actually, I think there might be some changes, and maybe you didn't get this information, but I'm told that
Explain that Kevin's
Oh.
operating from it. I don't think
Okay.
it's obvious.
Um,
It's to you, but
Sure. First, yeah, Kevin, do you want to explain that you are not in the room, or?
Oh yeah, sorry. I guess I should explain that I'm calling in from elsewhere today.
Okay. So I think there's been information that has come in where we need to pull the new public hearing, plan case number 2501 SU 2025 because of an issue that it was not published in the News Gazette correctly or at all. And so it should not be on the agenda tonight. And I think the intention is to put it back on the agenda for that April 17th meeting.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Then we can strike it from this agenda and we'll make sure it gets properly noticed.
Okay, so just to be clear, plan case number 2501 SU 2025 will be pulled from the agenda this evening and placed on an agenda at a future meeting, most likely the April 17th, 2025 meeting. Okay, approval of the minutes. We don't have any meeting minutes to approve. That brings us to communications. Do we have any communications?
None that I'm aware of, but Terry, did we receive anything? I've been out of the office for about a week.
We received 2 emails, one from Joanne Betty, sent on Monday, March 24th. And then I'm going to mess this name up, and I apologize if you're here. Please correct me. Mr. Gwain, Gwain, and Cindy Zarbuk. That was sent Tuesday, March 25th.
Okay, that brings us to our continued public hearings. So we have 2 continued public hearings. Plan case number 2500 T25, a request by the Urbana Zoning Administrator to amend regulations in Article 6 of the Urbana Zoning Ordinance allowing porches and porch stairs to encroach into a required yard is going to be continued to the April 17th, 2025 regular meeting. The case that we continued from our last meeting, which is plan case number 2502 CP25, a request by the Urbana Zoning Administrator to adopt the Imagine Urbana Comprehensive Plan, which we will continue this evening. Staff, do you have a presentation from staff?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll introduce myself. I'm Andrea Rudy. I'm the Senior Advisor for Integrated Strategy Development here at the City of Urbana. And my colleague Kevin is on the line, and we're going to tag team a little bit here since he's not here in person. So tonight we'd like to just kind of do a review again of the Urbana, Imagine Urbana timeline, the review and approval process. We'll discuss the refinements that we've made since the last public hearing, which was on 3/13. Then there'll be time for public input, and then Plan Commission discussion would follow, and then we can talk about what options we have at the Plan Commission to either move forward or continue the public hearing process. So just as a refresher, we did this overview on the 13th. This process, as everyone is probably familiar with, we started it back in 2020. COVID slowed some things down a little bit, but it was an extensive community engagement process during that time where we went out to each of the wards. We had various events that we were present at. I think there were 26 events that we participated in. That report then of that community engagement was published on October of 2022. We then went through the second round of community engagement where we had some exercises on how the city should prioritize its spending. We had, again, meetings in the wards and events that we hosted to cover that information as well. And I'm kind of just hitting the highlights here. Then we published our first draft in August of 2024. And since that time, we've been revising, having study sessions here at the Plan Commission throughout the fall and these few winter months that we've had. And we've now continue to refine that up until the public hearing on the 13th. And then tonight, we'll go over the final, or not final, but the refinements that we've made in the last 2 weeks based on Plan Commission and public comment at that time. So as I mentioned, we've been refining the plan since March 13th public hearing. Just to summarize what these comments are, and then we'll go into the detail. But we addressed suggestions and comments from the Historic Preservation Committee or Commission. Kevin went to the commission about a month ago, and members followed up, giving us comment, and as well as at the meeting. And so we've addressed those different comments that they've made. There have been minor updates to both the development opportunities map and place type maps, again, based on the Plan Commission discussion on the 13th, as well as additional public input. And then we have some minor edits that we'll go over as well. So the comments that we addressed from the Historic Preservation Commission, and Kevin, please, interrupt me if there's anything that you would specifically want to cover since you were at that meeting. We added Little Move 2.4 under Big Move 2. Big Move 2 has to do with zoning, the zoning ordinance. So Little Move 2.4 was added, stating, update the city's historic preservation ordinance to align with Imagine Urbana. We then added the metric, completion of the historic preservation plan update. And then under idea number 4, we added an objective, 4.5. The city's historic architecture and features are used to enhance its eclectic character. We added then the Little Move to correspond with that, was to seek grant funding dedicated to historic downtown redevelopment, and then added 3 metrics. 1, how many grants were applied for, how much grant money was received, and the number of historic downtown properties that received those grants. Again, continuing with the historic preservation comments, under Big Move 5, which is Expand Urbana's Arts and Culture, we added Little Move 5.6 to offer walking tours that highlight the city's architecture and landmarks, and the metric for that is how many of those annual walking tours, or the number of annual walking tours. Big Move 11, Advance a Clean and Green Community. Little Move 11.14 was added, encouraging adaptive reuse and historic preservation of existing buildings that contribute to the city's architectural heritage. And we added the metrics, the number of buildings that were reused or preserved, and the dollars invested in the reuse and preservation projects. Then under events that have shaped Urbana since 2005, we added an event from 2020, and that event was zoning ordinance was amended to allow more options to reuse existing buildings in R7, which is our university residential district, which includes around 20 historically significant fraternity and sorority houses. So that was in the event since 2005. An HPC, that's the Historic Preservation Committee member, also suggested adding guidelines for downtown design. However, staff believes that this would be addressed when we're updating the zoning ordinance per Big Move number 2. Minor updates to the maps. Under the place type maps, City Center was split into 3 categories: downtown, corridor neighborhood, and university neighborhood, and descriptions were added for each of those. The updated map, the map was then updated with those place types, and a notation on Gregory Place indicating 5-story was also added. And then under the development opportunities map, there was a split between Philo Road and Windsor Road. That area was all kind of grouped together at the time. Those were split into 2 distinct areas. We added the Boneyard Creek corridor, and that aligns with the 1978 and 2008 Boneyard Creek master plans. We made the sanitary sewer district and the city borders easier to read, hopefully a little less distracting for people, and also lightened some lines and highlighted the green spaces a little bit better. And then some other minor edits. Under the introduction, what is a comprehensive plan? We added the word zoning, and you can see that in the text that follows. The red word zoning is highlighted. That was missing, and so that's been added to add clarification there. Under background events that have shaped Urbana since 2005, we added the 2024 special census and updated the trends population text also in the background to reflect that census that was done. Under background and trends, I'm sorry, I repeated that, updated the population text. Then under background process, we updated the Imagine Urbana timeline graphic because in the previous version, it ended in fall, winter of '24, so we added '25 to that. We added the review and approval section in the process because we did not have that at the time, and so that's been added. And then just miscellaneous correcting printing issues, things that weren't printing clearly, photos that maybe were a little bit out of line, just some cleanup to that. Kevin, do you want to add anything to some of those changes that we made?
Well, I guess I'd just say I think the most substantive change, which we'll probably want to discuss here in some depth tonight, is really with those place types, splitting what had been called city center into the three categories being downtown, corridor neighborhood, and then university neighborhoods. So that's the area that's downtown, and then along Springfield Avenue between sort of downtown and campus, and then sort of everything west of Lincoln Avenue, and then also on the east side of Lincoln Avenue going sort of north-south. All of that area had been city center, and we had discussed that in pretty good detail and decided that we should split it into three categories. So I did that, and I'm looking for feedback on that. Then I don't know if there was anything else that was, that I thought was huge that needed a lot of discussion. Of course, we're happy to discuss any of these changes we've made. Other than we did, I know Andrea, you mentioned it, we added to the development opportunities map, we added a corridor for the Boneyard Creek, sort of that kind of follows the 2008 and also the 1978 plan. Dennis Roberts had mentioned something back on the 13th. We do have that plan from 1978 that we definitely haven't implemented, but I think it's still a good idea, and it's still a good idea to have sort of in a plan so it doesn't get lost in the future. So I think that's all I have to add to what you said, Andrea.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. And we have public input next with our discussion to follow. If that can be changed, if you'd rather reverse that at all or add discussion now, Dustin?
No, that order is fine, but I'll open it up to questions for staff right now. Mr. Hopkins?
Is the version in code online the most up-to-date version?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
All of these changes were made by Friday of last week.
So one thing I think was also added was an explanation of the relationship between place types and zoning? Or was that added before and I missed it?
Kevin, do you recall the timing on that, Mr. Hopkins' question?
Sorry, what could you restate that, Lou? I'm
So
sorry, I'm not sure
I
if I
saw
quite.
a paragraph that uses an example and explains essentially that place types are not zoning categories.
And Kevin, he's asking what the timing of that, and I believe,
I hadn't seen that before. It's something we discussed adding, and you haven't mentioned it as something added, but I thought it was pretty important. So I'm just trying to figure out whether
No,
I'm out of the
Kev-
loop here or
Kevin,
what.
I think that was added before our last meeting, and we had put it in
No,
the
let me.
text. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the plan online, but I think we had discussed that last time, and I think we determined that that it was already kind of stated in the introduction for place types already. I mean, I'll just read
Okay,
this.
I'll look for what I saw
directly-
before.
I
That's fine.
I mean, it says, and it said this for, for a while. It says, place types differ from zoning districts as zoning prescribes exactly what uses are allowed in an area. Place types describe the city's vision for a given area, whereas zoning is the tool to make that vision a
Okay,
reality.
there is an example somewhere of how place types differ from zoning types. And I thought it was there.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
Kevin, I have the place
And,
types description up there. Is it on that page, or is it somewhere else that you're referring to?
It's here, I think.
I think
Yeah,
it's somewhere
at
else,
the
but
beginning of place development type matrix.
It's at the start of the matrix.
It's in the matrix? Okay.
It's
Oh,
a
yeah,
paragraph
okay.
intro to the matrix. It may have been there before, but I think it's important given some of the discussions we've had, and anyway,
yeah.
if it's new, it's
Oh,
worth
yeah.
Yeah,
noting that it's new.
Yeah, the example is under place type development types matrix, as Mr. Hopkins stated. It refers to the example about King Park and historic East Urbana.
Right. Yeah. I am seeing that too. I don't know if we should just read it aloud for the
Well,
good of the.
is it new is the question.
It is not new. It's been there for
Okay.
a bit of time.
Okay, I have
yeah.
checked, it was at least in one previous version, so
Yeah,
my fault.
no,
Okay.
not at all. Yeah.
No worries.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff at this point? Mr. Rose?
I was looking in definitions because I think those who look at place types as as an indicator if there's ever to be a change in zoning, how might it go? And I was, for example, one of our communications brought up the word apartments, and I noticed that the word apartment is not defined in the zoning ordinance, doesn't list under definitions, I believe. But but I think we kind of know what it means. But the word apartment appears in terms of garage apartments in neighborhood 1. I wonder if we can live with the level of definition of terms that we have right now, or if we must be more precise.
This sounds more like a discussion item. If there's something, I mean, that's a good item to bring up, but if there's a part of this that you want clarification from staff about, we can ask that. But otherwise, bring that after we hear from the public. We'll go into discussion and let's revisit that topic.
Very good.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? All right, thanks, Ms. Rudy. We'll, at this point, we'll move into the public input portion of the hearing. So if anyone would like to address the commission, you can come forward, sign in, and state your name and tell us what you have to say. The sign-in sheet, it looks like it is on the corner of the table at the front here. Yeah, and we'll be limiting to the input to 5 minutes. That will be shown on the timer to the right there. Yeah.
I'm Jeff Harshbarger. We're new here a couple years ago, moved in from rural Piatt County. I'm a native Urbana, went to Urbana High School. I guess this seems like a big push to me, when we've got a brand new mayor coming in. Of the citizens who voted in Urbana, 2/3 voted for Deshaun. And I don't think any of this ought to go forward without our new mayor's input. That's my question.
Okay, thanks for your comment.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay. I'm Joanne Buddy. I just want to reiterate a few things that I said in my public input that I sent earlier. But a lot of my neighbors have said that they've submitted public input and that they're not listed here. So can I assume that they were sent to you, provided to you before the March 13th meeting? So this
Yeah.
is just anything that's happened since March 13th?
Correct.
Okay. Anyway, so in my letter to you, I asked, please slow this down. We now that we see a document, we've heard your discussions, your study groups, we feel like this environment is pretty intimidating for a lot of people. We stand up here, we're facing you guys, we get 5 minutes, it's counting down on us. Sometimes they say your microphone's not working. I mean, the whole thing is very intimidating. We, the residents, would like to have a meeting where either you're present or the staff is present and we can ask our questions and voice our concerns and have people answer those and say, you're concerned about this, but here's the answer for that, and it's not as bad as you think. They keep saying that they had all these people attend ward meetings, and yet everybody I've talked to has no recollection of that. And even in the introduction of the plan, it says, well, it was during COVID, people didn't want to turn out, so we had Zoom meetings, and then we went door to door in low-income and minority neighborhoods. Like, nobody I know, I mean, how many people, maybe you can get back to us on that, how many people attended these ward meetings? And I know it's not your fault if you held them and we didn't show, but nobody has any recollection of those meetings. And for people my age, a Zoom call or an online survey, or you can put 13 videos online and create a website for the plan, that's not going to cut it. That's not my comfort zone. So also, there's no mention in the plan of Lincoln Square. We've got a huge hotel opening up right across the street that should bring business, and in the last few weeks, the city council's approved 2 new innovative ideas, one for like an entertainment venue on Race Street and one for like an indoor golf, miniature golf and escape room. Why is there no mention in this plan of trying to revitalize Lincoln Square? Why is that not one of our big ideas? Also in the research where it says we got data, we did this, we did that, unless I missed it, there's no mention of we met with 20 local developers and asked them what their issues were with the Urbana zoning ordinance. And they said if we change this, or they've had this experience, that's why they didn't build here. Or are we just going with the field of dreams, like if we build it, they will come? Like if we change the zoning ordinance, it'll bring business to Urbana. You know, like I'm not seeing the research on, we had City Council had a meeting back in December to try to change the lot size for duplexes. And Kevin said, well, this is going to allow us to correct a wrong that's been in the zoning ordinance for years, like, that people can't build duplexes on small lots. If it's been an issue that needs to be corrected, why was there only one developer asking for it and only one developer that night at the meeting? It's not like the room was full of developers going, yes, please change this. It's been holding us back for years. And I think maybe that's it. I'm just asking you to slow it down, give us more time, and give us a more friendly environment to express our concerns. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment.
She's right, this is intimidating.
Just a bit.
Yeah. I'm Tracy Satterthwaite. I've grown up in this community, been here for many, many years. My career was being a teacher in the Urbana High School, and I also have been a business owner here in the city of Urbana. I have a few things I want to talk about. First of all, the housing thing. I really want to commend you guys for thinking about having greater density and allowing things like these, I can't remember what they called it, accessory housing or duplexes on properties, and allowing a little bit more concentration close to town, but also this is allowing for affordable housing to be mixed in with some of the other housing, and hopefully we can get some more affordable housing in near the downtown area. I've been concerned about having concentrated affordable housing on the edges of town. A couple of different projects that without good transportation and access to goods and services, this is a concern for me. Having them more interspersed is much more acceptable to me. One suggestion that I heard is to have an ordinance saying that when new buildings with 10 or more units are built, that at least 10% of those units should be made affordable. This has been tried in many communities throughout the United States, and including this has taken a foothold in Chicago in some areas, and somewhere I read that, and I'm not absolutely certain on this, but in the year 2026 that the state of Illinois is going to require that communities have 10% affordable housing. Something that Pritzker came out with fairly recently, I understand. As far as transportation is concerned, this has been a big subject with the mayoral race about sidewalks and so on, and I know that sidewalks in town really do need some attention. There's lots of really bad ones, but they are both brick and concrete, and I don't want to say that replacing brick sidewalks with concrete is really not a good idea. Concrete is an environmental disaster. We should not be thinking of that. We should be thinking about what other kinds of materials can be used and that will be sustainable and last a long time. Just a side, my house has brick sidewalks. They've been there for 100 years or more. There's been absolutely no maintenance from the city that I have known of since I've lived there, and it's been 35 years that I've lived there. And other than coming for 3 years in a row, they came and sprayed poisons on there to kill the grass off. So very little maintenance on those, and they can be taken up and put back down and using the same material, so it's economical material-wise and so on that way. I was talking with some other people about the walkability of this community, and one of the things that kept coming up was it's not the sidewalks that keep people from being able to walk around here, it's the traffic, the flow of traffic and the way people can get across the streets. Two different examples that were given to me as real concerns was, one of them was the grade schools, the traffic around them at drop off and pick up seems extremely dangerous to people, and I guess we've had a young lady got hit in front of the middle school just recently, and so this is bringing it back to being a great concern. Another place is University Avenue. With all the apartment buildings on the north side of University Avenue, there's a lot of students trying to cross University Avenue, many of them crossing in the middle of blocks. I find it very nerve-wracking to drive down University Avenue with all the students trying to cross. Is there some way that we can help them have a pathway to get across there in a little safer way? And the last thing that I just want to say is, as an educator, education is really near and dear to me, and I see no reference to education at all in this plan. I'm told that that is the responsibility of the school districts, but I think that when we have the schools being such a problem, and this is affecting whether people want to live in our town or not, I think that becomes a problem of the city. And so if we need to start thinking outside the box of ways that we can help the school districts, whether it be something like, it could be something like helping with vocational education. Maybe, I know there was a shed removal project. Maybe we can get high school kids to do some of this and have some vocational ed kind of things that the city could combine efforts with. Anyway, the last thing that I'm going to say is that there's a lot of time and energy going into plans and studies, and I would like to see, instead of having a lot of money going into plans and studies, to please make sure that there is going to be some action that is taken. Too many of them have been done without action following. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks for your comment.
Good evening. My name is Darlene Bailey, and I'd like to reiterate some of the things that this lady said. Okay? Jobs. We need jobs in Urbana. There's not a lot of jobs here. We need to be able to make money in order to afford a lot of things that we need. Most of our money goes to Champaign, and we'd like to bring it to Urbana so that we can be able to do more. But I hear a lot about doing things here, and I don't see much about jobs. We're going to need jobs. There's a lot going on in this country right now. I'm pretty sure everyone has noticed, but we are going to have to be able to take care of ourselves. It's a lot in this plan. And I want to ask Andrea, did you get the page 14 on the public safety? Read it.
What is the question about?
Page 14 on the public safety. I can't read it because of the pictures that's covering the words.
Yeah, the picture, that has been changed for the last
okay.
edition, and I apologize for that. Yeah, that was one of the printing errors that we corrected.
And
I can get you a clean page of that.
okay, for the average person, this is a pretty hard read, okay? You gotta be really dedicated to this to get into it and search it out. And I'm just about finished with it. And what really comes to mind with me at this moment, things a study coming to me, and that is the walkability. You're being very strong on making walkability a priority. And I'd like to know, do you foresee Urbana with less cars on the road under this plan? Promoting walkability is a good thing. I walk a lot. I don't have a problem with it. But winter, during the winter, I don't see anything that would cover that, or inclement weather, and you have to be someplace. That presents a problem to me. Walking is good for you. It is, but there are some people who cannot do a lot of walking, and there needs to be an alternative for that. And I don't want to walk everywhere I go. Some places I would like to ride, but walkability has really been made a priority here. And I'm just wondering, are you getting ready to do away with cars completely? Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your comment. Is there anyone else that would like to address the commission?
My name is Grace Harshbarger, and I, with my husband, moved here a couple years ago. We are just learning a little bit about this plan. Haven't read it fully, completely, but just following this woman's statement, I have to say, are we trying to turn the city into a completely walkable city where you can't drive at all? Because our roads are horrible, horrible. And the parking lot in Lincoln Square Mall, which, as I understand, the owner of Lincoln Square Mall was not included in this planning, is just, it's stunning to me. But yeah, I support a walkable, bikeable city. I like good sidewalks, but our roads are atrocious. And I'd like to see a plan that would attend to the horrible roads that we drive on. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment.
Okay, my name is Dennis Roberts. I did come in and offer you some ideas at your previous community meeting here in the council chambers. I didn't really come to say too much, but it was occurring to me that just as the individual was talking about the need for jobs in this community, and of course we would like to have training for the various kinds of trades being emphasized and possibly back in the schools again. But you know, engaging the youth in viable job training experiences so that they can move into the society and make a living for themselves and their families in the future is going to be really important, and I think that needs to be really emphasized. And the other thing about economic growth in the community, there are opportunities to do infill housing, maybe converting garages and secondary buildings into apartments that are small and affordable housing for the individuals would be a useful thing. So many people do have garages that are either not really used, but maybe used for storage. It could be converted into a house under the proper coding and conditions to make that a viable option to increase density in the community without changing the structural look of the neighborhoods. And I'm thinking about development along North Cunningham and especially along High Cross Road. The city once was expecting a Menards to be developed and to have development across the street from that to the east, or to the west rather, for a new housing development. So we have an entire section of High Cross Road that has been already enhanced with new street amenity and enlargement about 10 years ago or 12 years ago already. And we don't see any new activity really along High Cross Road, and that would be the most useful place to try to develop larger opportunities for merchandise stores and services in the community at large and regionally along that highway. So I think that anybody who's coming into the office of the mayor would want to really look at where the opportunities are to increase construction and bringing new businesses into the community. I do think that the mayor is going to have an opportunity to take this plan, which has been developed by community input, but the wording of the plan is very kind of pablum. It's sort of like very monotone. It's very typical of any planning document that you might find in any community across the United States. Yes, it focuses a little bit on Urbanus very specifically, but it's not empowered with action items. It's more like philosophical, but I just really find that there's just not enough true action items to achieve. But I guess it's going to be under the directorship of the newly elected mayor to bring forth a vision which I think has been really missing in the last couple of years here in this town. We haven't had an administration that had a vision beyond establishing what we already have and just maintaining. And I think that what we need is a person with a vision that will bring a change and unique and to accent the unique qualities of our community. But that's not the purview necessarily of the Plan Commission. So I just challenge the incoming administration to be creative, think out of the box, bring action points forward, and do so many plans we have on the shelf, but so little has been actually accomplished. And so I'm hoping that will change in the future, and we'll see, instead of spending more money now on planning, we should actually be spending the money on production and realization. So thanks very much.
Thanks. Is there anyone else that would like to address the commission? Okay, before we move into discussion, I think I want to give an opportunity to staff to respond to any of the comments or provide any clarification on anything that was said.
Yeah, give me just a second to kind of look over my notes and highlight a couple things that I might want to get into. I guess, yeah, so the idea of promoting sort of walkability is not one that's anti-car. We're not proposing anything where we're gonna, not let people drive anywhere or otherwise, get rid of cars. But yes, as one of the speakers said, some of our roads are not in great condition. I think she said it in other terms, but I'll just say some of our roads are not in great condition. We do not have funding to even really maintain the streets that we have at the level, at a really high level. So one of the things that's baked into this plan is really trying to build up the tax base of the community so we can actually afford to maintain the things that we have. So that includes streets, but it includes sidewalks and other infrastructure. And, if we are promoting walkability, if we're making it easier for people to walk places, that, necessarily I think would be fewer people driving places, which isn't a bad thing. If we're giving people a good option to walk or ride their bike somewhere, that's not a bad thing, and that's kind of what we're going for with that idea in the plan. Also, folks walking on a street put exponentially less wear and tear on our streets than cars do. So, the more people we have walking, the less bad our streets are getting. So I think that's a good thing. But I think for just a long time, it's been, the focus has really been on people driving everywhere and making sure that there's, big parking lots and things like that. And we're not trying to say people can't drive places. We're just trying to kind of shift the focus to, let's think about how people are going to walk places. Let's make sure that people can walk places. And that's really what that part is all about. So that's my piece on walkability there. I know Ms. Satterthwaite mentioned University Avenue. I know we've talked about that before. We know that's one of our most problematic roads for people to cross. That's controlled by the state, so it's controlled by the Illinois Department of Transportation. They have purview there. But I know in a previous study session, we did say, even though it's not under our control, we can still, signal that we want things to be better along even state-controlled roads. So that one's, University Avenue is hard to deal with. We don't have direct control over it, but we can indicate that we want, roads like University Avenue to be better for people to be able to cross it safely.
Kevin, didn't we add something to the connectivity map about that as well, to keep that on the radar, or am I?
I can't recall. We may have. If we did, it was probably a couple months ago, and I can't recall off the top of my head what that might be, but I know we discussed it probably 2 or 3 months ago. And I think the intent was to add something. I can't remember if or what we did off the top of my head. So let's see. Not sure if there's too much more I want to get into. I think a couple people were kind of in favor of the idea of sort of, allowing people to do things like turning garages putting an apartment in a garage, or, adding a second dwelling to, to lots in existing neighborhoods. And that's, and I'm glad to hear that some folks are in favor of that. I think that's a good way to add more housing, but without really, changing the feel of the neighborhood, or changing too much what sort of the, existing neighborhoods are like. So I guess I don't really have anything more to say than that. But I think a couple of folks mentioned Lincoln Square, and I think we had talked about that maybe at the last Plan Commission, maybe at the public hearing when we opened it up. But I mean, there are a lot of sort of individual, individual businesses and that we don't call out in the plan. We're cognizant not to call out individual sort of privately owned areas, but we do. Under one of our big moves, I believe, we do say that we should continue to implement the recommendations of the Public Realm study from 2023, and that focused a lot on the Lincoln Square area. So we're not just being silent on sort of Lincoln Square in that area. We do have that study that that we're going to be continuing to implement. So I just wanted to point that out too. And I think that's all I got.
Okay.
Did either you or Andrea want to address the comments around public input and public engagement and the extent of public engagement, particularly since the draft came out?
Yes, I'd like to do that. So since the draft, I think the process that we went through, everybody saw that in the reports that we'd done prior to the draft being issued. Since the first draft was released, and that was on August 14th of 2024, we had meetings in each ward. We had maps for people to come up and look at. Some of the people in this audience I recognize from being at those meetings. So we were getting input there. The maps have then been refined quite a bit since then. The maps are in the room now and available for anybody that wants to view them in council chambers, as well as Kevin and I. If anybody has any questions, we'd be glad to do that. So based on the input that we got from those ward meetings and the comments we had there, really did a lot of revisions since then, and we've been discussing those at the Plan Commission. We've also had the study sessions, throughout the fall, where people could make public comment as well, and then it's culminated in the public hearing. I think we had 6 study sessions prior to the public hearing. There might have been one more, but at least 6 study sessions leading up to the public hearing. And I also wanted to address another comment about the future mayor's involvement in the plan. Kevin and I met with Mayor-elect Williams about probably a week ago, maybe 10 days ago, where we covered the plan in depth with him, and knowing that he's going to have some say in it as well. And as well as incorporating him into the plan. There's a message from the mayor. I'll be working with him on getting a message from him as well on what his vision is for the plan as well. So he's involved. He's got a lot on his plate, but he considered that a priority for us to be able to meet with him and go over the comprehensive plan. We also have an upcoming meeting with him on economic development to go through some of the initiatives that are underway, and then what he would like to see happen as well. So he's going to be an integral part, of course, in implementing the plan and still giving input on the plan.
All right, thank you. Okay, before we declare the public input portion closed, I think we need to clarify something procedurally, because in our last public hearing, we didn't close the public input portion so that we could continue to take public input in our next meeting, which ended up being today. But also thinking that we may or may not want to allow for another meeting where public input would occur. how should we move forward procedurally? And I guess this is more of a question for Kevin.
Yeah. Well, I think we could do it in the same way that we did it last time. So on the 13th, Plan Commission had discussion, and then at the end of that discussion chose to, I think it was make a motion to continue the public hearing till the next time, with the understanding that there would be public input at the next meeting as well. So I think that's an option here tonight as well. So if you want to go into discussion, you could either do that again, or you could do something else. Like if you were ready to make a recommendation to council, you could go forward with that as well.
Okay, I guess I was just trying to understand, like, if we were to come to the point where we're ready to make a motion to make a recommendation, would we then need to officially close the public input portion before we do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to do it.
Okay, so remind me if I don't do that. But at this point, we'll move on to discussion. We'll leave the public input portion open in case we do continue this to our next meeting. Is there anyone that would like to lead off with any comments for discussion? Mr. Rose.
Regarding the introduction on page 5, what is a comprehensive plan? Although I'm new to the planning process and the legal standing of a plan commission within a municipality in Illinois, I do have the impression that for a city that adopts a formal planning process, as Urbana has, the adoption of a comprehensive plan is an expected or required part of that. I wonder if someone more familiar with this process could help me here. And if it is part of a formal process, perhaps it deserves description within the introduction to the comprehensive plan.
Sure, I can answer part of this, and maybe Kevin can jump in as well. But there is not a state requirement for cities to do comprehensive planning in the state of Illinois. So that's not something that we would need to include. The state does enable cities to do planning and adopt comprehensive plans. In terms of maybe a better description of the sort of legal power or how the plan works, I haven't read the introduction today, so I can't tell you exactly what's there, but I think, the plan carries the force of law in the sense that it is meant to be the legal basis, the findings of fact for the decisions that Plan Commission and other boards, Zoning Board of Appeals, for example, as well as the actions that council take in regard to development decisions. So there is a legal aspect to it, and I don't know that that's explained, and maybe it's appropriate. I don't know. Kevin, did you want to weigh in on that?
And I might jump in here. We did have that in our Q&A that we did for the comp plan early on in the process, but we did not include that here. Yeah, what codes there are and what that process is. So, yeah, I think that's something we could definitely add. We do have the language in a different document that we had earlier in the process.
Mr. Hopkins.
I think that's a good idea, and there's two parts to it. One is that although it's not required in the state of Illinois, there is state legislation that says if you have one, you have to do these things. So there's that piece. And the second is what Dustin just went through, sorry. the real use of it is what's significant in Illinois. And I think some of the confusion that occurs all the time, including tonight, among audiences, potential participants' expectations, is not understanding that a comprehensive plan is defined in a particular way in the legal structure that is different from other plans that the city makes. And it makes lots of other plans. And so what gets included in the comprehensive plan is not the comprehensive planning of the city. It is the things that are useful for the legal support function of the comprehensive plan. Other stuff may be there, but it isn't what the, I think it'd be really useful to have that at the explained roughly as Dustin just did.
Other comments or discussion?
Just a little follow-up. One of the speakers mentioned education. Education is not direction is given regarding land use, economic development, transportation system, social dynamics, the environment, arts and culture, and overall quality of life. Education is not included there. Would there be any reason in defining what the scope of the comprehensive plan is, to mention what is outside the scope?
I think it does, doesn't it, somewhere? Talk about that? School district, park district.
It's all under the quality of life of the community, yeah.
Well,
It's in one of our big ideas, yeah.
but the distinctions are there. Another thing that is worth reminding ourselves and audiences is that in addition to the comp plan document that you see here, there are, what, 2, 3 other preceding documents that have gone out over the last couple of years. So there's a whole data document. There's the Examine Urbana. And there's the document about how the city works and how everything's organized. So that a lot of this stuff exists as part of this process. It doesn't all get wrapped into the final document.
Yeah, I mean, in the online version, there's a link to the Examine Urbana, which is the existing conditions report.
Yeah, and so if I can jump in here for a sec. Yeah, I think what Lou just said kind of speaks to, something I would like to do once the plan is adopted is figure out a good way to package the plan, and this will probably be online, but to package the plan so that we can have all of these pieces more easily accessible. So yes, Examine Urbana is not officially part of the plan. The videos that we did with our service providers, like from the park district, from the school district, from others, way back at the beginning of the whole process to kind of explain what all of these different agencies do outside of the city. So they're not really part of the comprehensive plan. They're sort of ancillary to what is in the plan. But being able to come up with a good way to package all of this up so that it's easy for people to understand. And frankly, it would be easier for us to understand too, even though we kind of get into the weeds of these things. There's a lot there. So it's kind of all in how we present it so that we all can understand it.
So, Mr. Rose, were you suggesting that something be added to explain more about what the plan doesn't do, or
Um,
just the limits of what the plan is trying to accomplish, I guess?
In retrospect, stating what the scope is,
The scope.
it should be sufficient. And and I think that is covered here. The issue of education was raised, and I was sort of following up on that. But my recommendation in the introduction, what is the comprehensive plan, goes to its discussion within a legal use framework, but I don't see a reason to talk about items outside the scope.
Well, we could, I mean, I think it's a common question that people will want to know, well, why doesn't this deal with schools, or why doesn't this deal with parks? So maybe just mention some of the special purpose governments that we have, that we partner with and that we work with, but that they are ultimately responsible for these particular issues.
Yeah, we had the one graphic, let me just go back to that, this
Yeah,
one.
I was
that
trying to
Venn
remember. I
diagram.
thought I saw something.
Yeah. So that's under the section, what is a comprehensive plan? And we do have text that explains that as well, but we did the graphic to hopefully simplify that. The other thing I just wanted to mention, when Kevin started, when he was talking about packaging, you know, this is our original website that's still active. This is something that we had intended to roll off, that it would no longer be out there. It's there right now, but it does have these different components that Kevin referred to. Remember the video we did at the beginning of the public hearing? That 2-minute video is right here on the homepage. The different findings we had, this is the priority, the spending priority findings are right there. Examine Urbana is right there. The Community Outreach Phase 1 report is there. The 2005 assessment is there. And then what Kevin referred to, the different videos on the community service providers. We had 13 different, it was really every a representative from every taxing body for Urbana. There's a little 2-minute video by that person that leads that organization. So something like this, I mean, this is an easy tool to get to. Again, it's an online tool, which not everybody, you know, has access online, but it was a one-stop shop. And adding, you know, you could easily then add the plan to this as well.
Yeah, I think something to consider is the long-term cost and resources to upkeep and maintain something like that. So I wouldn't want
contract
us
on
to
this-
bite off more than we can take on over the long term.
Yeah.
Back to this question of the community partners. I mean, it mentions community partner plans, and it shows in the diagram. I think what people aren't necessarily getting is who exactly those community partners are, and they're probably, I mean, it would be a long list to really be exhaustive in describing who those community partners are, but maybe something that just says, for example, and lists a few of them. I don't know what.
So this section here, there were 13 videos, and so the reason we did this up front was to educate people on what your city does, because people come from, you know, we're a very you know, somewhat transient community. People transfer in, transfer out. They come from all different communities, big, small, worldwide, and different cities and different markets do different things. Like some are in charge of the park district. And so we wanted to show that these are the different agencies that do these different things, that are responsible for different functions that aren't the city's purview. And that's what we did by doing those videos. So yeah, that was the purpose of that, is exactly what you're talking about, but you needed to watch the video in order to get that information.
Well, maybe make that a hyperlink to this thing. I mean, it doesn't solve the problem for everyone, but people
Right.
with
But it does,
access.
I mean, this is, you know, it explains it here, you know, that the facets of the city that are separate from municipal government, like parks, schools, public health, and much more. And so again, that we had that in mind, that, you know, people are confused about, you know, what's the city responsible for. So that's still out there. We could easily link that, you know, to the plan as well.
Sounds good. Any other discussion points? Mr. Hopkins?
I'm trying to figure the order I want to do this in. So let's start with the text about other plans, which is sort of what we're talking about now anyway. We talked last time about how other plans were being incorporated in this plan,
Yes.
and I don't see the changes in the latest text, at least I looked on online today, in that.
That was actually changed in the last version.
No.
Let me
No,
just find that.
In the last meeting, we kind of came to the conclusion that it would be better to not include other plans, to have those plans stand alone.
Right.
And so to make a kind of clean break with this document from
I'm just trying to find it.
Yeah.
previously adopted plans.
Yeah, that's something we still need to consult with our city attorney on how the best way to do that. But yeah, I think the intent was to sort of say, here are all these other plans that were adopted as elements of the 2005 plan. We still want these to be in force, but as standalone documents. That's correct, right?
Correct.
Because
Okay.
I didn't see it in there, I've worked on some language.
Oh, great.
Okay? Because what we said last week is we weren't going to write that language in the meeting, so I decided we better write it outside the meeting. So in looking at this text, so we're at, let's see. Can we get it up on,
Yeah, I'm trying to.
yeah. I
This
think I
should
want to
be
go
right-
below this,
Yeah, it's right below here.
right here, no,
Yep, I'm just going too fast.
okay, so in this paragraph, in this, I'm editing, I realize we don't usually do this, but somebody's got to do it sometime. I would delete after in the second line, several amendments to the 2005 plan, period. Because they are not the result of the recommendations in that plan. Okay, that is not what they are. And then, let's see, I've got to figure out my own text here. Well, in the rest of that paragraph, we have to be clear, these are not elements. They were never included as elements, and they shouldn't be included as elements. They were amendments. That is, these plans were formally adopted by recommendation by the state legislation required process. They came as public hearings before the Planning Commission. They were recommended to the City Council. They were adopted by the City Council by ordinance as amendments to the 2005 plan. Okay, that's formally what they are. Now, similarly, the Retreat at Urbana Future Land Use Map Amendment, I think we have to be careful, and I have not gone back and looked at this one, but we have to be careful whether we're talking about a zoning map amendment or a land use amendment. And some city attorney, I don't know whether the previous or current, when a zoning change was made, even though not discussed this way in the Plan Commission, was adding to the City Council's ordinance, not only amending the zoning ordinance, but amending the plan map of the 2005. In my view, that should not have been happening. But in any case, I would take out the similar Retreat to Urbana Future Land Use Amendment example because it's completely different from the other things we're talking about. And it's not listed in Appendix C1, neither are any of the similar amendments. So as far as I'm concerned, that should be deleted. And I'm talking text here now, not
Yeah,
in any other
absolutely.
sense.
Absolutely.
Now, imagine, next paragraph, imagine Urbana cannot adopt anything in the legal sense. It can include something, but adoption is an act by the city council, not the plan. And I would argue that it should not include, as Dustin was just mentioning, any of these things. Okay? And clearly, none of these subsequent versions could be automatically adopted with Imagine Urbana, because they would have to go through the legal process of hearings, recommendations, and adoption if they're going to be amendments to the plan, if they're actually going to become part of the plan. So that sentence needs to go away. Now, that leaves us with the question of what are we going to say instead? And I've got two options. Option one would say, future revisions of these plans or similar plans, and that list still has to occur, may be adopted as individual plans or as amendments to the Imagine Urbana Comprehensive Plan. But they're not done in our recommendation. They're not included in this adoption of Imagine Urbana Comprehensive Plan. All right. So that's one option. In other words, we simply say, we haven't dealt with them. If the city wants to adopt them, the city council wants to adopt them, we could do that. Option two, which I think is my preference, would say the following plans which were adopted as amendments to the 2005 Comprehensive Plan are hereby adopted as individual plans as of the date of their adoptions as amendments to the 2005 Comprehensive Plan. Now, this language would be in the ordinance of adoption at the city council of adopting
Imagine Urbana.
the Imagine Urbana. In other words, what this is saying is and I'll explain why in a minute, we are adopting these individual plans as of the date they were originally adopted, so that we have extracted them from their current status as amendments to the 2005 plan. But we are also acknowledging we haven't updated them, we haven't reviewed them, we haven't held public hearings, we haven't done anything about them. So we're going to adopt them as of the date of their adoption as an amendment to the plan. That would be my preferred way to do this. Now, I think that would mean that we should either include that language also in our recommendation motion, which I think is the best way to do it, or we might want to put it in the text of the plan. I think that creates
And
complications.
Mr. Hopkins, then how would we, when the plans then get changed, like, let's say, I'll pick a plan, the Boneyard Creek Master Plan, that one dates from 2008. Let's say they do another one in 2027. Do we look forward to that and try to address how the plan implements those future plans or the future adoption of those plans? Or
I would say no.
Okay.
Because we already know how that happens. If the city does any of these other plans again or revises them, they adopt them. And if they are not adopted as amendments to the comprehensive plan, they actually don't legislatively have to go through the Plan Commission,
Right.
which in the case of some of these, I think is appropriate that they not go through the Plan Commission. All right? But if they are adopted, if somebody proposes them in the future to be amendments, then they have to go through the amendment process. Well, we already know that.
Yeah.
We don't have to,
And I think to address your comment, I think we probably need to do both. We need to change the text that we have here in the plan, but also, as you mentioned, have that as a recommendation then, part of the recommendation to council
right.
as well.
No, we definitely have to change the text in the plan in the sense of deleting things. How much of this particular statement goes in to the plan itself? I think it can go there, but it also has to be in the
Yeah.
in the motions.
Yep, I
Now,
agree.
just, because I've thought about this a bit, here are some of the reasons for this, and I'll go in reverse order because I'm realizing the first one is a question. If we wanted to include them, then we would have to go through some kind of review process, which we haven't done. We haven't shown them to anybody. We haven't looked at them. I confess I've looked at a few of them, but not recently. So in my mind, we cannot include them. And as far as I know, they were never shared as documents throughout any part of the Imagine Urbana process. We are not going to review them at this point. And we do not generally include them in any of the staff reports. So not having them be adopted as amendments, to my view, is an advantage, because if they were amendments, then we should be checking all of them every time we go through to do a staff report. And we are not checking for any contradictions or anything now, so that makes no sense. Now, and then a last thing, which opens up another set of questions here, is the Encode Plus platform, which now is the mechanism of storing the actual plan document. Is it possible in that platform to include reference or hyperlink to other plans? That's a question. And if somebody decides that any one of these plans at any time should become an amendment, then there has to be a way in the platform to actually include that.
We can definitely do hyperlinks, and, you know, like these different plans here, there's a hyperlink when you hit on them to go to that plan, but maybe we need to,
Well,
Yeah,
but is
say
that
that
plan
differently.
actually on the platform? In any case, that's a technical issue, which you already have begun to think
yeah,
through what
it's
it
a
means.
hyperlink. It's probably not specifically on the platform itself. We're linking to the city's website for that.
Right. So anyway, that's just another, that's the level of technical detail we don't have to go in. So in any case, some people might want to have reactions to this, because I've got other things to do. But that's the most substantive thing that I didn't see worked on since the last revision.
Well, I think if we could take advantage of your wordsmanship and then run that by our attorney, just to make sure we say it legally or how it needs
Yeah,
to be
right,
stated.
right.
But I think using the basis of what you have would be, you know, a great place to start, for sure. I mean, I think you've stated it very well. We just need to run it by our attorney.
Yeah, I like option 2 myself.
Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on Mr. Hopkins' revisions?
The Venn diagram would that, could the Venn diagram, if it's to be included, should represent the relationship of this comprehensive plan to other plans?
You mean in more
Right.
detail than it does?
Yes.
Well, that's kind of, to me, what it represents. It's representing them as, for the most part, outside of the
Yeah.
comprehensive plan, as opposed to if it was entirely in the circle of Imagine Urbana, then I would think of those as being adopted as amendments. So
Yeah.
I think maybe even pushing the circle out a little bit further would be appropriate. maybe.
I see this amendment process as the only thing that draws a plan into this, another plan into this comprehensive plan,
Correct.
Inside it,
inside it.
correct.
Right. And I don't know if there's any need for clarification there.
Yeah, we were just talking, if we go with option 2, where these plans are not adopted, then maybe this needs a
The
bit
Venn
of,
diagram
a
needs
bit
to
of
be
thinking
updated.
about how this is represented visually.
Absolutely.
What page is that on?
I had that open.
Yeah, I think it should be completely outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gotta be
but touching-
outside of the circle.
Outside but touching, maybe?
And another,
Close.
another subtlety that might help keep this distinction straight is in places like this Venn diagram, I think we should be describing Imagine Urbana as the Imagine Urbana Comprehensive Plan.
Okay,
Because Imagine Urbana has been used as a logo, a brand for a whole process, for lots of other things.
correct.
And if we simply use that without saying any more than Imagine Urbana, we're not being precise enough about what we're referencing.
I agree.
Since we're on the Venn diagram again, the small area plans, I'm assuming those are future small area plans. In
That's
which
correct.
case, we should label that as future small area plans, because we're not including any, the only existing small area plan is the Crystal Lake neighborhood plan, maybe the downtown
Right.
plan, but those would not be adopted as amendments, so.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate.
Yeah, I like the future.
Yeah.
Leave it there, because it
Yeah, we
indicates that
refer in the
things
plan
could
to
be
small area plans, but yeah, they're all
adopted.
future.
Others could be too, but that's
Yeah.
the best example, and
Okay. Should we, I mean, you mentioned kind of in jest about maybe having it touch, should we have other city plans reflect that similar to what we do with the community partner plans?
I would have them touch. I think
You just touch them?
it's a closer relationship than the
Than
other community
other plans, I
partners.
agree.
You want to make a distinction,
point.
and that's the distinction.
Good point.
I will, do you want a break, or?
Yeah,
I'll-
that sounds like a good idea.
I will bring up one of my comments, or something that I want to discuss, which is related to the tracking progress section. So early on, I think I raised this question, or I raised it in one of my comments online, that it would be good, so the language in here is pretty vague in terms of how exactly the evaluation or the assessment of progress is going to be made, and who it's going to be reported to, and how often it's going to be reported to. And I'm wondering if it wouldn't be useful to provide a little more detail, at least in terms of what will happen in the context of Plan Commission. So maybe we don't want to be so specific about how often this is going to be presented to council or something like that. But I think for Plan Commission, like, for example, I used to be on the Sustainability Advisory Commission years ago, and we would have regular updates, if not every meeting, pretty frequently on progress with the climate action plan. And I would think that it would be appropriate to have something similar that was built into this, where we're getting, I mean, we don't need to have updates, on a bi-monthly basis, but some kind of regular reporting of some selection, some kind of like dashboard of some of the more diagnostic metrics, as well as an update on the progress of the checklist type items. So how many of the checklist type items? And
So-
I don't know, we can talk
Yeah, I
about.
think in this section, evaluation and reporting, I know we talk up here as a full update every 5 years regarding progress, but that we would have regular updates. We mentioned that we do the metrics each quarter with Plan Commission and City Council. So we do state that we're going to have these regular reportings both to the commission and council.
Okay.
And then as far as the other goals, et cetera. So we spelled that out. I don't know if that's
Okay.
not as clear as you want. We also.
I was
in-
looking,
in
I was
the
looking
commu-
at the
Go ahead, I'm
tracking
sorry.
progress section, the other section. So, yeah, I think that's probably good. I think every quarter is probably appropriate for something like that.
May I ask, following that, this comprehensive plan builds upon the Examine Urbana document, or is that the
Well,
word?
yeah.
And that seems to be the document that captures the data, and this evaluation process seems to feed data.
Okay, well, the Examine Urbana in other plans, other comprehensive plans in other city, you'll see it referred to as existing conditions, like where we're at now. And that's what Examine Urbana represents in very good detail. I mean, the historical place about where we're at now. So then the plan itself, what we're measuring there is what we're doing going forward.
Yes, I just see an interlock between the evaluation process described here and subsequent versions of Examine Urbana, if that's
Yeah, and
a
we do.
process rather than a
Yeah, we do hope to
one-off.
be able to update Examine Urbana and keep it a useful tool.
Yeah, although, I mean, the plan, we've talked about this in terms of what the plan is based on, right? So the plan is based on this combination of analyzing the existing conditions as well as the public input. So the plan as something that gets adopted is based on that snapshot of the existing conditions. So we wouldn't just want to continually update that, because then it would lose the connection or the coherence with the plan that ends up getting
Right,
adopted.
I guess when I'm referring to that, so much of the existing conditions is based on our history. And so we'd love to be able to just continue that as far as how things evolve in the future. But that's quite a big undertaking to do. But we don't want to lose Examine Urbana. It's such a great document that we'd love to be able to have it to be relevant down the road as well.
Yeah, well, I think it would make, I mean, if the plan is to update the plan every 5 years, at that 5-year point, certainly
Yeah.
that would be the point where
I
the
think so.
Examine Urbana gets updated as
Yeah.
well. Mr. Hopkins?
There's a subtlety here that I'm continually worried about. Can we scroll down about 2 lines here? Okay. The last statement here says, every 5 years, staff will update Imagine Urbana. Okay, that cannot be done. That's not legal. Okay, Imagine Urbana is the comprehensive plan. If Imagine Urbana is the comprehensive plan, staff cannot update it. Changing it has to go through a process.
You're correct. This is not the whole process here. Yeah,
Well,
I think that
but
needs to be made
it-
clear. Yeah, I agree.
So the 2 points
The
here.
staff never
We've got to
does
be clear
that.
about what changing the plan means and what providing updates on plan metrics, on data, on accomplishments. None of those things actually change the plan. Okay? And this is another example where Imagine Urbana comprehensive plan has to be explicit. The words comprehensive plan have to be there.
Yeah, if the intent is to say that we want to try and update the comprehensive plan on a 5-year basis, then maybe we say every 5 years, the city will go through the process of updating the Imagine Urbana comprehensive plan, something like that.
I like that. So the city
Yeah,
will
that
go
sounds
through
pretty
the
creative.
process.
Yeah, which
I like
includes the
that.
whole thing. That's the quickest,
that's-
I agree,
that's
that's
a
the quick way
quick
to
and
say it
simple
without
change, yeah.
explaining all the detail.
Although that could potentially mean that we're constantly updating the comprehensive plan, at least on the timeline that we've
5 years.
gone through. Well,
This
this
is
took
from-
5 years.
Yeah, well, so.
It was a joke,
This, okay. I mean, but
hope
there's
it
a
wouldn't-
serious issue here as well. We did not update the comprehensive
Right,
plan
it's a
this time.
new plan.
And we could argue about why we didn't, which is another whole issue, but we started from scratch.
Yeah.
That's different.
Yeah, and the hope that would be that it would not take as long than the next update. All right, other comments?
So you and I got to do handouts here?
Go for it.
Let's see, let's do a couple of simple things. Mobility map. I was able to proofread that, which I told Kevin I would do.
Is that the connected city map you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the
Yeah.
connected city map, sorry. I'm
Okay.
in a previous era. For arrow 2, the wording in the explanation, got to scroll down further. Olympian Drive termination at US 45 of continuation to High Cross Road. Now, what that was previously was not of, but or. In other words, it's a contingent statement. I'm not sure whether that's simply a typo or whether it was an attempt to say it would not be continued.
Kevin, can you address
That was
that
a typo, I'm guessing.
typo?
Yeah.
Okay,
I assume
that's
a typo,
fine.
yeah.
Typos are fine. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't
Thank you for the
subtly
catch.
correcting a typo and changing the meaning. For item 5, which is, I think, Florida Avenue. Got to scroll up now.
I'm trying to here. Oops. Sorry. Operator error. I'm sorry, Mr. Hopkins,
Okay.
where do you want me to scroll to?
So 5 is Florida, it's, go down again. I think 5 is Florida Avenue. And the statement says reduce street lanes from 4 to 3. Florida Avenue in that section is only 2 lanes. Am I misunderstanding something?
Kevin, do we need to explain that?
Possibly.
Do you have that?
I can't actually see what's on the screen. Also, the video is a little behind the audio I'm getting through the phone, so.
Oh,
But I'm not seeing the map on the screen, but I can go pull it up I'll pull it up on my computer. I'll let you know.
okay.
Well, I think this is the Florida Avenue corridor project that RPC did recently, isn't it? Number
That's what
5.
it appears to me to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me, I'm gonna pull it up on my end.
Yeah, okay.
Kevin, I do have the stream up. It's just there's like a 30-second delay to it.
Yeah, no, Rondell, I'm looking at the stream, but yeah, it's definitely a little bit of a delay, so I'm not able to follow along exactly. Okay, number 5, yeah. Yeah, so that's the Florida Avenue from Race to Lincoln. That's the one where we'll be putting in a multi-use path on the south side, and then this is the sort of the rest of that project also. So we already had funding to do that multi-use path, but then this is the rest of it, which is to redo the pavement. I don't know why it says reduce lanes from 4 to 3.
Okay, well, the simple thing might be to delete it.
Just
Yeah.
strike
Just
that.
delete the
Strike
reduce,
that.
because it otherwise looks like we don't know what we're talking about, which I prefer to avoid.
Maybe it just was copied from number 1.
Yeah, whatever, how but I'm trying to prove to Kevin, I told him I'd proofread this map, and I'm trying to prove to him that I did.
Yeah, and I threw that one in there just to see if Lou would catch it.
Thank you.
Nice move, Kevin.
Yep.
Okay, now, let's see. If we go to the place types map,
Oh, wait, before we leave the
Oh, okay.
connected city map, so this, one of the comments we got tonight was about issues on University Avenue, and I feel like this has come up in previous meetings, and I thought we had said we were going to put one of these high priority project or medium priority project kind of indicators on University of Avenue, or at least a stretch of it, and I don't see that, but am I not remembering that correctly?
That sounds vaguely familiar. I guess what would we want to say about that? Because
well, I think there are actually
Yeah,
two stretches.
Yeah, there
and
was
they're
a stretch.
distinct. Some people in previous meetings have been focused on the stretch of University Avenue from Vine Street, Broadway, from 5 Points to the interchange, I think.
Yeah.
And other people have been focused on University Avenue from Broadway to Lincoln, or well, even to Wright Street.
Yeah.
And I think there's been enough interest in that it would be good to say something.
Yeah, I think so too. I think maybe it's worded as explore possible, pedestrian safety or pedestrian and bicycle safety improvements to University Avenue. You can
Yeah.
and
that's-
highlight 2 stretches of it, maybe with 1 number.
Yeah, I think that's a good enough.
And can I clarify the 2 sections? The second one was Broadway to Wright, and the first one was 5 Points to,
East to the interchange.
and what, but the interchange is north, but
No.
which
Going-
interchange?
East and then it curves up.
So the curve, okay.
Yeah.
So from 5 Points to the I-74?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah. That's good enough for now. Somebody, when you do the map, you'll know where to quit, because
Yeah.
it's the intersection with,
Yeah, before it becomes an on-ramp.
Yeah.
yeah. And I think the 2 things that Dustin mentioned are broad enough that they basically cover both those sections. We don't have to separate them into 2 different things, even though there's obviously subtle differences about
And if you remember the video that we showed at the last public hearing, we have a bicyclist at the intersection of one of those stretches
Oh, yeah.
saying the very same thing
Yeah,
about,
right. So, and that's why it's worth
Yeah.
adding it if we can.
So I feel like there might be two maybe subtle differences that we might want to call out, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like University Avenue west of 5 Points, I feel like the concern there is crossing north-south along University, or across University Avenue. And I feel like University Avenue to the east of 5 Points is more like everything. So it's, you know, it's moving east-west along the University Avenue corridor, and then also being able to cross it safely. So I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
I would suggest adding that scope to both stretches, because biking on University Avenue from Wright Street to 5 Points could use some help too, I think.
Yeah.
Well, it's not possible. I don't-
Yeah, I mean, they
Well-
kind of added that it's like an 8-foot wide sidewalk for most of it, so it's definitely better. But yeah, I mean,
You can make
I'm
it
not
two
one to
projects
say
if you
that-
want to, but
yeah.
I agree with the distinction. I'm just trying to simplify.
However we describe it, let's go like east and west of 5 Points, for example. Let's not lose the block between 5 Points and Broadway.
Thank you.
Right. Yes, I agree.
Caught me.
That's no man's land. So.
Okay, I think that's all we've got on the
Okay.
connections map.
Yeah.
All right. The development opportunities map. Boneyard Creek was added to this. I don't
Yes.
see that.
Should be up there. If it's not, I'll need to add it. I don't know why.
Oh, it's a
unable to pull it.
greenway. Okay. Okay, now I understand. And that's fine. I just, when it was said it was added to the development opportunities map, I assumed it was as a development opportunity. So I was looking for that. Okay,
Yeah.
never mind.
Okay.
I now understand that one. Any more on that map?
No.
Okay, the place types map. You want to take on this one first, or you want?
Well, I think we definitely need to spend some time looking at the new category the new categories that were created, which is corridor neighborhood and university neighborhood, as well as how exactly those are mapped
So let me.
and their descriptions.
So I agree, we got to do that. Before we do that, let me just say that we've got to work on the place types map. As far as I was able to do from the encode version, I could not get a readable version online, regardless of how I zoomed or panned. And that may be the nature of the way in which the map is scanned or coded or stored, that it doesn't scale properly. It may be that the text sizes are just way too small, but if I zoom in and make them bigger, they become so faded I can't read them.
So what I just did was Kevin, I know you're lagging behind here. I just double-clicked on the map, and it's now downloading. Maybe you can explain how that process works.
Well, I guess first I would ask Lou, did you click on the map so that it downloaded the higher quality version?
So that's what I just did, Mr. Hopkins. I just clicked on
Can you zoom
it.
in now?
Yes.
Well, zoom in for me.
Well, hang on. So you can click
Okay.
anywhere and zoom.
So you have to tell people like me that they have to do that because.
Just click on it, yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
Because I zoomed it and I couldn't read it. And again, this is going to be the map. I mean, there's no document running around on paper or a big rolled up map or folded up map. So if people can't read it online, they can't read it. So,
Yeah, so I did add the text right above the map that says click map to open
Yeah, let me-
/ download higher
I've got to go
resolution
back a
version.
page.
Yeah,
Hang on.
because Lou, I recognized that was an issue too, because a lot of the comments we got were, hey, we can't read these maps, so.
yeah, okay, so.
Maybe you could,
So
maybe you
here-
could put that in like highlighter yellow or something like that.
So see at the top of
Yeah.
the map,
It's got, yeah.
click map to open,
So.
to download the high
If,
version.
so do that again so I can see if
Okay,
the other
so I'm
things
just
that I'm
gonna-
concerned about.
So go ahead and
actually-
click on it. Is that what you want?
Yeah, I want to be able to read it so we can talk about it.
So Kevin, it's downloading now. I know you're
Okay.
behind.
Yeah, I feel like I might be right there with you because it looks like it's
Yeah,
slowly
it
downloading.
takes a while
on
to
my end.
download. Your 30 seconds is getting eaten up. Okay. And where would you like me to click on?
Well,
Lou?
The neighborhood
take the
corridor.
upper left.
Up in here?
What I want is, say, a quarter of the map, the northwest quarter of the map.
So about in here somewhere?
Okay, I've got to be able to see more of the map than this and still be able to read it. Go up into the, what's the, you can't just pick a size or pick a zoom level?
So Andrea, if you hold the
Here
control
we
key
go.
and
This is closer
Wait,
to
you have
what
a
I
mo-
want to
okay.
see.
Say that again, Kevin?
I was saying if you use the control key and then, well, I don't know, you probably don't have a mouse there. but
I do
usually
have
you
a
can-
mouse, yeah.
if you- Okay, if you hit the control key and then if the mouse has a little scrolly thing in the middle, you can, I think, control and then use the wheel to zoom in and out.
There we go.
Okay, all right. So,
Yeah,
so
thank you, Kevin.
that sort of answers my question enough for me to make a couple of comments. The legends are way too small. There's plenty of room, and it's even when you're zoomed in, the problem is if you're zoomed in enough to read the legends, you can't actually also see the place you're trying to look at. So I would make
Yeah.
the legends much bigger. And that applies both, it applies at least as much to the color icons as to the text, because I can't match, the colors are so close together that I can't tell what color I'm looking at. Unless I can also see the legend at the same time. Okay, that's enough on the map, and then we got the content of the map we got to talk about.
Yeah, but I think font size throughout could probably, I think maybe font sizes were smaller initially because we didn't know how many annotations we were going to be adding and how crowded it would get, but assuming that we're kind of at a stable point in terms of the amount of text on it, I think the font sizes in general can get a little bit larger, even beyond the legend, so that you don't have to, I think what Lou is trying to do is to zoom in on like a quarter of the map, you know, to be able to both see a larger extent and understand the relationships between things, but also be able to read the text at that scale.
Yes.
And the intent, as it has been for a while, is to get this into a more interactive online map once we actually have the content, in place. So hopefully we'll have something that's less less cumbersome to use than just sort of essentially like an image file that you have to zoom in on. Not that that doesn't have its place. I mean, we'll have that as well, but it would be nice to just be able to click on a place and see, hey, here's the place type, and here's the associated info with that place type.
And for the public that's here this evening, the maps that are on the walls, those have been updated. So it's the same map that you're seeing here online have been printed on the walls.
I notice that just in what we have up, we have some text being used to be descriptive and others that are sort of instructive. So expand industrial capacity is a different kind of statement from something that describes a location. It seems that font or in some way or other, those descriptive versus suggestion text should be distinguished.
Yeah, like wayfinding information versus the annotations. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
So place types.
Yeah, so place types.
Yeah.
And we can start on the map since we were looking at it. Maybe if just go down to the university neighborhood and corridor neighborhood area. Okay, so the extent or the shape of those didn't change. What changed was just splitting them off from downtown, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Can you go down to Philo and Windsor? Is there a reason we're distinguishing the north side of Windsor as commercial and the south side as neighborhood center?
I think so. I mean, the north side of Windsor is more sort of typical car-oriented commercial type development already. I don't know that that's going to change in the future. I don't know if that's really going to be more sort of what we're envisioning for a neighborhood center.
For instance, the Meyer location, they have outlots that are for sale. And typically those go to national chains that are attracted to, historically, they go to Meyer stores. In fact, we have one of those lots that are going to be developed here soon. Whereas on the south side, those are all really neighborhood businesses that locally owned neighborhood types.
Okay, the physical configuration is still very auto-oriented, but I hear your distinction and it's real, so.
Yeah, and I think there's also infill opportunity on the Pines. Is that the Pines?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Pines, which
which
could be residential, correct?
The lower part, yes.
Yeah.
Well, definitely the lower part, but in the neighborhood center, it allows a mix of uses, correct? Or it describes a mix of uses.
Yeah, I could see, like if they wanted to add some residential sort of on the, on sort of that southwest part or the southeast part, that would make sense.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to think through why it makes sense for it to be neighborhood center, which to me it does.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to believe there was a reason to value that distinction, and I now believe there is.
So maybe we can look at corridor neighborhood description first, since this is the first time that we're seeing this.
Yeah.
Do you want me to switch to the
Yeah,
definitions?
Yeah, sure. Can you switch to the definitions?
Yeah, we'll try to do that here.
So yeah, so the intent, while she's pulling that up, yeah, the intent here was, I think last time we were talking about these areas mostly being residential. So that's, you know, that general description is in that spirit. But it could also include some businesses and institutional uses. And that's reflected in the land uses. And then the building form, I just put 3 to 5 story buildings. But yeah, I put this together based on our discussion from the 13th, so.
Are there currently any 5-story buildings on the east side of Lincoln? I don't think so.
There are not, and there are not also on Springfield, sort of between downtown and Lincoln. I think maybe the tallest building there is 4 stories.
I would suggest that we say 3 to 4-story buildings. You can
Yeah,
fight
I'm
about it at
fine
the
with
zoning
that.
ordinance, but by keeping it to 4, we don't have to fight
Yeah.
about it now.
Right.
And I think it does apply to both Springfield and Lincoln.
Yeah, I mean, if you want some flexibility, you could say typically 3 to 4 stories, but I think a good
Yeah.
starting point is what's there. You're sure there's a 4-story? I think
The-
mostly 3-story, but
Aren't they?
Yeah, there's one. So right across from Phillips Rec, I think there's a 4. I think it's 4 stories. But I may be wrong. So
The new building at the end of Nevada is not 4 stories? It's 3.
no, that's 3.
So, well, then it should definitely be only 3 to 4.
yeah. Well, I think the current zoning tops out at 3, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. They did. That was a by right development, so they did what they, they essentially maxed out. I'd say what they could.
Right,
to
okay.
do a by right development.
So it should definitely not say 3 to 5. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
So do we want to say 3 to 4? Is that
Well, I think we
the
should check
conclusion?
it.
Typically
I
3
mean,
to 4?
we can pull up Google Street View if you want, but I think we should say what is there, and we should
What
say
currently is there.
typically 3 stories or something like that.
I'm okay with that. I just,
Typically 3 stories.
Yeah. Unless we know that there is a 4-story building for sure, but typically 3 stories, I think, allows for that flexibility. If there is a current 4-story building, then I think we're good.
Okay.
I'll take out the redundancy then with typically right after that, in that phrase right after it.
Yeah, I think
We won't say typically twice. We'll come up with something else.
Chinchi just pulled up a picture of the one we think you're talking about. It looks like it's 3.5. It's like a half-buried basement level, maybe, something like that.
Yeah.
so typically 3 is good.
Yeah.
My general reaction is I think it accomplished what we set out to accomplish.
You
Now,
can't
in
see
the
me now, but I'm
Matrix-
patting myself
what?
on the back. I said you can't see me right now, but I'm patting myself on the back.
Good. That's what I was trying to do.
Well, you can't see us and we're giving you high fives, so.
The,
Thank you. Thank you.
So when we
I'll
get
see
to
you,
the.
yeah, I'll see you in 30 seconds.
When we get to the matrix, we may have to talk about it again, but
In the building form section, it says long monotonous buildings are discouraged. What's
Yeah.
the intent with that?
Well, the intent is to discourage long and monotonous buildings. But yeah, it's because people don't like them. And, typically so it's kind of, so in describing the building forms and describing the place types sort of in general, the intent is to kind of set us up to be able to write a zoning ordinance that gives us the desired outcome. So some of the comments we've heard from folks previously, which I think are really good, is, talking about the Lincoln-Busey corridor and wanting to discourage sort of developments where somebody essentially buys up a whole half block and puts in a really big monotonous building. And, I think you can put in rules to kind of make it so that doesn't happen. Or if it does happen, if you have sort of a long building, you can make it not monotonous. Like there's ways to, to kind of break up the facade so it doesn't look like just one giant building. So that is, I put that in there to kind of look toward the future and help us get to kind of where we probably want to be with the updated zoning ordinance.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was trying to get more clarification about. So is it really about the building, or is it more about the facade and the materials, and whether or not the facade has a horizontal orientation versus a vertical orientation that breaks things up in the building? Because as I read it right now, it seems to discourage assembling multiple parcels to create a building. And if this would be a principle that we would apply when someone comes to us with requesting approval of a PUD or something like that, would that be a criteria or a principle that we would use to not approve something like that because we don't want buildings that run across multiple parcels that have been assembled, as opposed to getting into more of the design features of the building?
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, so if our new zoning ordinance is how I would intend it, we might not even need to go through a PUD process. We just write the zoning ordinance to give us what we want, and then people can just, do that. But I guess there's always room for exceptions and things. So, yeah, I don't know if you can think of a sort of a better, more nuanced way to state that intent. I'm open to it.
Let me think about this for a second. Someone else can.
Yeah.
So were there go ahead.
No, I'm sorry.
Were there changes in any of the other text descriptions of types?
University neighborhood.
Well, yeah, so university neighborhood was, that was kind of a new creation as well. So I know I borrowed for both of these new types. I borrowed from other things, but made them more, but added the nuance based on our conversations from last time. And you'll note that in university neighborhood, I didn't shy away from saying height. I didn't shy away from using density in there, even though we're avoiding that elsewhere.
Right.
So I thought of something, if we can come back to the building form. So I see this described in some cases as, rather than discouraging long monotonous buildings, we could say that we want to encourage something like a more vertical facade design or rhythm or something like that. I don't know what the architecture,
Yeah.
the correct architectural description would be. But I think that's what we're really after, as opposed to, taking issue with someone assembling 2 or 3 parcels to make an apartment building. Is that not, am I not talking the right architectural lingo?
No,
I think well, so Dustin, I think you may be more on track with what we'd want to see, but I'm thinking since we're trying to make this plan readable for just regular folks, what you're describing, I think would be maybe harder for folks to understand than if we say, we don't want to see these sort of just big nondescript buildings over half a block or whatever it is. Because the intent isn't to discourage, say, somebody taking 2 or 3 parcels and putting up, a building there. It's more like taking half a block or a whole block and just putting up a continuous, kind of blankish facade along there.
Yeah, well, I think this is where it comes back to the users of the plan. So, yeah, we want it to be understandable by everyone, but we also want to make sure we're communicating what we intend to the development community, who's going to come to us with proposals based on what they're reading in the plan or what they meet with you and you tell them is in the plan. And then we're going to be making decisions based on the language in the plan. And it would be hard for me to, this is one of these things where applying this as a criteria to approve or disapprove something might be more of a challenge. Because I've already, to my mind, I'm thinking, we want to discourage, assembling a few parcels together to make a building. But you're interpreting this as, it's, assembling parcels in the entirety of a block or something like that. So yeah, I don't know. I just think.
I have some wording.
Yeah.
That long horizontal elements should be interrupted with vertical elements or.
That's better than saying vertical elements, because if you say vertical elements, that to me is a completely different kind of building that we don't want.
Yeah, no, but the extended horizontal elements should be interrupted.
Yeah.
Somehow.
There you go. I think
I like that.
that gets at the issue without really thinking about or implying a certain scale. So.
So are we done with corridor neighborhood?
I am.
I am. In university neighborhood,
A question here.
well,
Can I ask a question here? So I'm looking at corridor neighborhood. I kind of would like to retain the long monotonous buildings are discouraged. Could we just add then a sentence that says something to what Bill just said? So something right after that says essentially longer buildings with extended horizontal elements should be interrupted vertically, however we want to say that. Is that okay, or should we?
Yeah, I think that's what we just said, right?
But I think Kevin was saying
He's
keep that
keeping
original
both.
language also.
Oh. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just saying, because yeah.
I think
No,
the
go ahead,
problem is
sorry.
that, having tried to apply our design standards that currently exist for like the Busey corridor, having these kinds of very subjective criteria. What is monotonous? How do you define that? I mean, that's
Well, so I think that's where it comes down to the comp plan being the policy document, and then it's going to be up to us in the zoning ordinance to actually articulate what that looks like, so that, you know, I'd say in the future, when we're going to do reviews for plans that come in, we're not, you know, I'm not going to be looking to the comprehensive plan unless somebody is asking for special zoning approval. I'm going to be looking to whatever zoning ordinance we have. And to me, that zoning ordinance would take this statement about long monotonous buildings and you know, and turn that into a regulation that would get at sort of vertical, you know, whatever we're saying, vertical articulation, interrupting the horizontal facade and stuff like that.
Sure, I guess if that's the end point. So you're describing a future of no planned unit developments, I guess, and if that's where we're heading, then that works, but.
Yeah, I know, and
Yeah, let's not.
I'm
Let's not assume there are no
I'm-
PUDs.
Right. I'm not saying that. But however we want to phrase this, I just want to make sure it gives us good direction for the zoning ordinance. So.
Well, I'm feeling like we're probably going to end up continuing this to another meeting just because we want to see some of these revisions. So can you take a cut at, you know, making a revision to that, however you think best, and then we can pick it up the next meeting.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So maybe we should focus on giving staff direction on a few other items and get ready to continue.
Yeah, maybe we should tackle the university neighborhood. So there was something when I read through this. Solitary buildings on single lots are discouraged. What do you mean by that?
Let's see.
Like, so can you explain what would be problematic about that, I guess is what I'm really after. Because I, in my mind, I can think of examples of that would fit or make sense.
Yeah, I can't recall exactly what my mindset was when I wrote that, but I think it was, I feel like it was trying to get away from sort of maybe a small building sort of in the middle of a lot, or maybe set back, just maybe sort of a car oriented type thing. But
well, I'm trying to think of, you know, internal consistency of the plan. And one of our other, you know, priorities, big moves, big ideas, I forget which one it is, relates to incremental development. And incremental development is all about solitary buildings on single lots. So
Let me give another problem with this. Even the massive building about to be built just west of Springfield, of Lincoln Avenue, if the developers manage to pull it together, is one building on one lot. So I think this statement says nothing.
it does.
I would delete it.
Yeah, I agree.
Does it get to, are you trying to get to the issue of yards? Or proximity of buildings? No?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. I'm comfortable deleting that sentence.
You may be able to think of something else you want to say to get at something, but I think that statement gets at nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying about having like a small building sandwiched between two big buildings, but that would also be the opposite of a long monotonous building. So I don't know, I don't know why that would be
Yeah.
necessarily a bad thing, but.
I mean, and that's also just an opportunity for somebody to come in and redevelop it. If you've got a tiny building just sitting on a single lot, and this is you know, an area that encourages sort of higher density stuff. Yeah, so I will delete that.
Any other comments on this one? That was what caught my eye initially, but
I'm okay with it.
Me
yeah,
too.
I think the rest is good.
I just want to point out, so right now, sort of the area that is the campus mixed use area, sort of that west of Lincoln, south of the university, I see that as an opportunity to add metered parking. So under the streets and connectivity, I did put in the phrase metered parking because I think that a lot of people use that for sort of commuting and then parking there and going to the university. And so I would like to see us at least explore that option in the future. So I added that there.
Kevin, where was that reference made about the parking? What, was it on
It's
the?
under
conne-
streets
University
and
neighborhood.
connectivity.
So it was still in university neighborhoods,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I saw that. That makes sense. Okay, is there anything else that we want to try and tackle tonight? Any pressing?
I would just say that the place, some things to think about, but I agree we want to wrap up and continue.
Yeah.
You've got a 6-story apartment building image in N2, NC, and CN, and it clearly doesn't belong there in my view. I mean, you can work on the whole matrix. Needs to be worked on. It's valuable, it's really good, but it has some problems.
Can you elaborate on that? Because if to give staff direction so that we can try to have it as clean next time
Yeah,
as we
so
can.
at the moment, I see a 6-story apartment
Yeah.
building lined up as permissible
Okay.
in N2, in neighborhood corridor, and in neighborhood center, and in corridor neighborhood. And I think we've just said that we don't want that.
Yeah.
Are you talking about
For the photos.
Yeah.
the 5 to 12 units, that one? Or which one?
Well, it says 13, the 13 plus units, it's yellow in those.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, we would want more nuance. So that's
I would
not
take the
saying we
yellow
would-
out for that. We don't want that. We're saying in our types, we don't want, we can discuss it next time. Let me just put it that way. That, to me, doesn't belong. I don't think
Sure,
we
yeah, but it's not, I mean, I don't know how many, I can't recall off the top of my head how many units that apartment building actually has.
It's not that
know,
it's
it might be-
13 units, it's that it's 6 stories tall.
Yeah, I think we just went through and made a change to corridor neighborhood to say typically 3 stories, and then we would show a 6-story building. So there's a disconnect between what the description is.
And there's no way you're going to put that in an N2. So that's the most obvious example. There's some other subtleties within there that we can discuss next time.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a good leaving off point. Food for thought.
And Mr. Hopkins, if there's anything that you could send us in advance, that way we could be prepared, if you do have some thoughts. I mean, I
Yeah.
know we can
Yeah,
still
there
discuss
isn't
next,
anything
we're going to
more.
continue
There
it
may
for
be
sure,
Some
but,
of the stuff you work on in the
but if we could
meantime.
have it, you know, a pretty clean version for you next time would be preferred.
Okay, so just as a reminder, we didn't close the public input portion, so the intention is to continue the meeting, continue the public hearing to our next meeting, and allow for public input during that meeting as well. But to do that, we will need a motion,
So moved.
Okay, so there's a motion by Mr. Hopkins to continue plan case number 2502 CP25 to our next, which will be a regularly scheduled meeting of the Plan
Correct.
Commission, I believe, on
Correct.
April 3rd. Is that
That's
the
correct.
correct date? Okay.
Yes, that's correct, yeah.
So do we have a second? All right, we have a second by Ms. McFarland. Any discussion on the motion? All right, looks like we're ready to vote. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Andreessen?
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins?
Yes.
Ms. McFarland?
Yes.
Mr. Rose?
Yes.
Ms. Yu?
Yes.
And Mr. Hallred?
Yes. Okay, so that motion passes. Just as a reminder that this case will be continued to our next hearing, or our next regularly scheduled meeting of the Plan Commission, which is April 3rd. Okay, so that brings us to old business. We have no old business.
And Dustin, I might just add, just as far as the process goes, we need to, the Plan Commission will ultimately make a recommendation that'll go to the Committee of the Whole. The next Committee of the Whole that we would be working towards would be the 21st. And they need their materials, you know, roughly a week in advance. So just as far as how the process rolls.
Okay, good. Thanks for the clarification. New public hearings. So just as a reminder, if you're looking at the printed agenda or the agenda that was available online, that plan case was removed from the agenda earlier in the meeting, and that's going to be re-added to our agenda in the future. We have no new business. Audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the Plan Commission for 5 minutes, uninterrupted, on a topic of your choice? If so,